Thank you. So welcome to our little talk on essential tips for marketing your VR game. I'm Adam Bombati, or I guess more formally, Jasmine Lehman. I'm product marketing for Live, which is a VR capture software company. We do mixed reality capture. That's what we kind of specialize in. So if you've ever seen people who look like they're inside of Beat Saber, that's our technology doing that. We also have a wing that's called Live Productions, in which we create high-quality cinematic game trailers for VR game studios. Very briefly about me in product marketing, kind of that startup life. I've done a little bit of everything in marketing, from influencer marketing to social media, community management, and even things like ads. But that's enough about me. I want to introduce our amazing panelists that are part of Impact Reality, Flat to VR, Impact Labs. And I'm going to actually have them introduce themselves. So maybe we'll start with Elliott and kind of work our way down, yeah?
Hey, I'm Elliott. Good to be here. Honored to have been invited. I started in VR a little bit before Beat Saber came out. My brother had a CV1 and just blew me away. It was such an incredible experience. And I think it was that next day I went out and bought one. And just this love, especially when Beat Saber came out, started applying traditional marketing strategies around growing that community. Selfishly, I wanted it to succeed because I wanted more maps and it to grow. I think it only came out with 7 songs, and so it was just a really cool thing to pour myself out, build that community, and that started this whole pathway of just building multiple communities, helping to grow different games like Zenith and Synth Riders and a whole big list of other ones, and just finding out what makes a game work and how to tell their story to get it into people's hands has just been a passion of mine.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jasmine. Thank you for coming. Elliott's a brilliant marketer, by the way, so really great to get some insight from him today. I'm Jasmine Uniza, CEO of Impact Reality and Flat to VR Studios. And I think at this point, we've probably launched, at least 50 VR games with our PR marketing company. So, Eric, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Eric Masher. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Impact Reality and Flat to VR Studios. It's a pleasure to be here speaking about this. It's a passion that we all share, which is virtual reality. And we wanted to assist as best we could with developers trying to promote these great games to get them in the hands of people to enjoy them. So it's going to be a great talk today, and I hope you all get a lot out of it.
What's up, y'all? I'm Skeeva. I'm a CIO here at Impact Reality and Flat to VR Studios partner, and have a podcast called Between Realities. And yeah, just all about VR and growing the industry and helping in any way I can.
Awesome. So there are so many topics that we can cover when it comes to marketing, and to be completely honest, each of the things that we talk about could probably be panels on their own, but we're going to try the best we can within the little less than an hour that we have. But we're going to try to cover things like pre-launch, building community, promotion, post-launch, and if we have time, depending, maybe some common marketing mistakes that we've seen or maybe done ourselves. And at the end, we'll also have Q&A at around the last 10 minutes. So if you do have any questions, hold on to them, and we'll get through as many of them as we can. But onwards. So maybe we should start sort of kind of chronologically with pre-launch. Now, what are some things that a game studio or maybe an indie dev should consider before launching their game?
I would say the biggest thing right away is what type of game. If you are going to launch a multiplayer game, you need to start probably 3 to 4 months before you would start a game that's a campaign-only game. You have to build community, and that takes time. And if you try and do it 2 months, 3 months before your launch, you will probably fail. This needs to be done 6 months to maybe a year before your launch.
Yeah, with pre-launch, a lot of what happens is during pre-launch, there's a lot of things to consider. First, you have to think about, is your game ready to launch? Meaning, have you tested it? Is it ready for launch? The next one is knowing. Lost my train of thought. Getting ready for launch, and then the next one is knowing the market, knowing all the different other games that are out there. Who is the player in your space? Who are you competing against? How do you want to message your game? That's all part of pre-launch. And then also knowing the timing of your launch. I mean, we all know that during the summers, usually it gets hotter, so there's a little bit less people playing, but if you have a younger audience, it's also like summer vacation, so you'll probably have a lot of people playing then. So it's really timing it, not just if your game is ready, but timing it to your like anyone else in the space and the audience that you're trying to market it to.
I'm going to throw in there too, real quick, that you should always remember there's so much involved in making a game. So make sure from the beginning to kind of work in that marketing budget, because you don't want to kind of be caught close to launch with your pants down, no budget.
In that same vein, you actually mentioned target audience. Now, this is a factor that's going to be important in your marketing strategy from pre-launch, during and post. But how can one determine who their target audience should be for their game?
Testing. You need to, early on, test with as many people as you possibly can to find out who your game resonates with, and then just do a ton of market research. There's a ton of information out there if you know where to look for it, and that's the best place. But testing is probably your best bet. Test from anything from key art to name to price. You cannot do enough testing in gaming, and that's one of the things that we realized early. Why we decided to do impact labs early on is if we don't have the knowledge from the game players, how can we be knowledgeable about what they want?
Yeah. And I guess like the more important thing too about demographic and knowing exactly who your audience is it determines your entire marketing campaign. And so if you pick the wrong audience, then pretty much everything you do onwards just compounds on all the wrong things.
So what about, there are, so many different platform options out there. You got Steam, Quest, PSVR 2, and if you're feeling spicy, you've got Pico, AVP, and things like Viveport. How can a game company figure out which platforms that they should be publishing on?
It's, again, a lot of it is just looking at market, where the market is. I mean, I think in today's market, if you're not developing first with the MetaQuest platform, in mind, I think you're setting yourself up for some type of failure. But I do think that the other platforms are completely viable if you can find an inexpensive way to get there. So the more platforms you're available on, definitely the better. But you probably have to qualify where you need to go first, and that would be Meta, just because of the amount of headsets that are there and people that are in them. And then you can work to the other platforms, Steam, PlayStation VR 2, Pico, probably in that order. But yeah, I mean, I think, Elliott, you've done a lot of research into what platforms are viable, and I think Steam still is viable.
Yeah, and that's something that so often we hear people just scratch off Steam and maybe even PSVR 2, and there's still a huge market for a lot of games. There's certain kind of arcadey experiences that probably just flat out won't do well on Steam, but so many games would do well, and there's a lot of side benefits to getting on Steam. You have kind of a chance. One of the biggest things that sells your game is high quality footage, and so on a PC platform, you can crank the super sampling, get it to have a super wide field of view, and really kind of show what the game is offering a bit better. And Quest tools are getting better, but still. And then a lot of content creators just work on Steam, and so you're getting some kind of side benefits to doing that even if you were just to break even on kind of game sales on that, I still think at least getting it on Steam is worth it.
So, okay, now we've decided maybe what platform or platforms we want to publish our game on. What about considerations like pricing? How do we know what would be a good price amount for our game? And I guess kind of tacking onto that, where do things like pre-orders and wish lists also, go into play with this?
Yeah, I can tackle the pricing question. It's interesting because VR games tend to be less expensive in general than other games, and obviously it takes a lot to build a VR game, and I know that a lot of the games that are out there are probably more valuable than their current price point, but there's a very sweet spot that you have to hit between like knowing your game's value is this much, but if you just decrease it by a little bit, can it reach a much larger audience now? And this is specific to like multiplayer games especially. You want to make this game accessible because if it's a multiplayer game, people go in there and there's nobody in there, then your game's dead. There's even, sometimes there's even community building efforts that you can do where maybe you give a certain amount of games for free so that when people get into a multiplayer, there are a lot of people already in there. But yeah, it's just really considering, like, yes, your game is very valuable, and of course it's worth a lot. You work so hard on it, but could you double your amount of sales if you lessen the price by like $5?
Yeah, and again, too, multiplayer versus single player campaign. One of the biggest problems that we see with multiplayer games is they value the price at too high, and especially early on, and then they don't have enough player base to sustain the multiplayer part, especially if you're multiplayer only. So it's super important that you price it properly. Figure out how you get that entry point to be as low as possible, whether that's like early access pricing or giving away things in alpha to get more people into the game early on. But again, doing that price point is so important. And then again, testing. Let the players tell you what you should be charging. They know the threshold. They know what they want to pay for a game. They'll tell you what it is. And exactly what Jasmine said, you need to take your emotions out of the developer. You know what you put in this game, the blood, the sweat, the tears, the money, the time. That doesn't always equate to dollars. You have to decide that early on, where we think our game is worth compared to what we can actually get for that game. Those are the things you have to decide early.
Real quickly, as you're saying testing though, Jesse Shell has a great kind of couple set of blog posts about just testing how to do that. Your data that you collect is so important. Like it's, if you just get fans from your game and you're only hearing from that 0.999 that went all the way, join your Discord is like following, and they're the super involved people and they're the ones giving you the feedback. Often it's not very good data. It's knowing how to appease to like small percentage of hardcore, but you need to be thinking from such a broader perspective. And so getting unbiased kind of testers, but look up his kind of guide on how to go through play testing and to do that early and to ask the right questions that kind of evoke honest responses. Yeah,
it's funny because we're talking about pricing. All the things that we're talking about, it all like kind of, we're talking about them in separate pieces, but they all work together in harmony. And a lot of the things we're talking about is also about building community and getting people in there. How do you get them in there early? Do you give them early access? Do you give them special pricing early on and really or work with them to build the different features in your game so they feel heavily involved and become those champions in your game? We're asking about pricing in such a separate context, but it really relates to exactly what type of game you're trying to build.
Yeah, and Jasmine said too, we've launched over 50 VR games now. One of the biggest issues that we come up with when we come in as a PR and marketing team is sometimes we have to tell you as a developer that you are valuing your game too high. That's one of the hardest conversations that we have to have. But if we don't have that conversation with you and let you know up front, then you're setting yourself up for failure. So just please always be open to where your pricing structure needs to be, because I think it's one of the most important things, especially in the VR game market.
Try not to take it personally, essentially.
I do want to make one more point too. Because of the success of Gorilla Tag, there's been some slight move towards making games free to play, but monetizing free games is a pretty difficult beast all on its own. Like you can have a very dedicated player base, but they might not want to spend money, so that conversion can be quite hard as well. So even though we're saying, think about your pricing, we're also not saying make it completely free because that's a whole different discussion.
Yeah, we can do a whole panel just on multiplayer free-to-play games.
Exactly.
And I will say real quickly, Meta does have some good tools now where you can A/B test pricing. I don't know if we have time, but a lot of people say, you can always go down, but you can't go up. And that's not true either. We've had, especially if you're continuing to develop the game and come out with certain features, there's a chance that you can kind of bring that back to where you were hoping to be as it's fleshed out and kind of seeing a pathway. But I guess with just pricing and knowing how you're going to be competitive, just study, integrate into the market and see kind of what people are doing. There's a website called vrdb.app that shows all the way from the beginning of the MetaQuest, the first one. It shows sales and graphs and kind of estimates on sales of different games and how it's progressed throughout time. And so look at some of those too, and then see just kind of what others are doing too to really kind of answer that question.
Awesome. So now we have our platform or platforms decided. We have pricing in place. It's super easy, right?
Oh, yeah.
So easy. But the next consideration potentially is, so now that, again, we have our platforms in place, we have these beautiful blank canvas store pages. Now, what can one do to, for a lot of places, the storefront's going to be your landing page, essentially, for your game. This is going to be, for a lot of people, their first point of contact with knowing anything about your game and deciding whether or not that they want to purchase, wish list, or pre-order. So what can a developer do to actually get those clicks, get that buy or pre-order or wish list?
Yeah, I would say early on, like, store page is super important, but even before that, step back and you need to look at every landing platform that you have as a developer, as a game, whatever it may be. Because one of the biggest things that we find when we come in as a PR and marketing team, that when we go to look at you, most of the stuff is a mess. Links don't work. You click on them, they don't go anywhere, or they're broken in some way. The graphics or the assets are not cohesive, they don't make sense. The bio of the game or the company are outdated, and those things have to be cohesive. Especially if you decide to start marketing and you show a spotlight on certain things and they don't look good, you have already lost your battle. You have won the battle by getting them to go there, the call to action. You've won that battle. You've lost the war because now they've seen what you have to offer and they don't want to go buy. So cohesion is a huge part of that, and that's one we look at early on before we even get to the store page.
I'll take the store page though. Before you even get to that point too, like you're saying, what makes your game unique is such an important question to answer all throughout like development, because if you find those things and you put the right attention to really making that a key part of the game, that's crucial. But when you get to the store page, so often you'll see these like trying to go into all this lore about the game that most people don't care about. At the beginning of like whether you buy the game or not. It's not if it's not an established IP or anything like that. Like most people don't care. But get to what makes this game special and what makes it unique. And if you can answer that we've seen like once you finally create a store page that all links to that, this is what's special, and here's how no other like game is doing this, and here's kind of the passion of why we did that. If that gets put into the store page, we've seen a huge like bump from just store page to clicks. Meta also added a whole new like markdown editing ability on the store page where you can add GIFs and format in special ways. So definitely take advantage of that. And then, sorry, I know it's a lot, but the blog page too, having regular updates on your blog page, that gets a notification to everybody who's following on the store page, and potential buyers also look at that to say, like, how engaged is the developer? And if they see regular posts, they feel the aliveness, and if you kind of point in the blog post, like, congrats to so-and-so on their high score, and, just really feel engaged through using that store page, that can make and break a potential buy.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
People always say, never judge a book by its cover, but unfortunately we do, right? So you're not going to go into a store and pick up a book and have everything be a mess, and you're not gonna buy it, right? So everything has to look good. Your trailer has to be up there, great screenshots. Everything just has to be in order, and it has to just look professional, and for that person to click buy. So.
Yeah, and it's interesting, the space that we're in the VR market now is that there's actually quite a number of games releasing. Before, we didn't have that many, so people were more patient and will spend the time reading through things and evaluating things, but now there's just a lot coming at you all the time. And if, as a buyer, for example, if I was thinking about buying a game, but say it was a couple of years old, I didn't see any blog posts on their storefront, I didn't see any updated store graphics, I didn't see them responding to the comments or the store reviews anytime recently, I would think the game's dead. I'm like, well, why would I buy this 2 or whatever year old game when there's so many new games that are coming? So if you, and it's interesting too, because there's a lot of games in VR space that came out early, that were just a little bit too early and actually could do great in the market now, but the developers have just abandoned it. And even just small things like, updating blog posts, little small fixes, making sure that the community knows that you care about their feedback and reviews by replying to both the good and the bad reviews, because if you only reply to the bad reviews, you come across as defensive. But, if you reply to everybody, then you genuinely care. So, yeah.
VR has a very long tail in sales, and I think much more than we've seen some of the flat games. And so, again, so many devs are so focused on their next project that they forget their last one. And there's such a potential even to use your last game as a marketing kind of push towards your new game. I mean, with Max Mustard, we worked with getting some special sales inside the game of Richie's Plank. And so that's huge. Hundreds of thousands of people saw that and then knew to get at their new game and check it out with a discount. That's the other thing with pricing. The discount codes that they recently did, where you can kind of specialize a discount for your game as a way to also A/B test and see kind of would that game sell, and does it sell crazy more when it's at this price point without affecting the value of your game by pricing it cheaper on the store page.
Yeah, for context, so of anyone that didn't know, so Max Mustard released and then, I guess recently, put out a 90% discount code in Richie's Plank Experience, which of course a ton of us have. And then that made the game sales skyrocket, and Max Mustard became the #1 on the store after months of not being #1. So there's different things you can test, with sales and discount prices, but maybe more hidden ones that don't overtly cheapen the or
the perceived value.
Perceived value. There you go. Thank you. And then, sorry, there was one more thing that Eric touched on about making sure that your appearance all across online is really good. So I do want to say you don't need to be on every single social media platform. It really depends on your game, especially if you don't have the time or the bandwidth. But for example, sorry, Adam, I think I'm skipping a couple of steps across. But if you are targeting a younger audience, especially community-based, you have to be on TikTok. That's where they all live. It's such a, if you're not on TikTok and you have a younger audience and community base, that's where they all live and where they're all interacting and doing all the things together. And then Twitter, of course, is how you would get access to all the professionals in the industry, all the creators, you guys all know. You're all on Twitter, right? And if you're not, you should be, because that's the most important spot for all of us in the VR space. So it really does depend on your game, where you spend your time and effort into on how you present yourself online.
Yeah, so I guess switching gears a little bit, but really, again, this ties into pretty much everything, building community. Now, community, these are going to be the people who are, shouting from the rooftops about how awesome your game is, hopefully getting new players to join. So they're pretty important, and they're also free. I mean, they actually paid money to your game, so I guess even better. But when it comes to things like beta testing and feedback, for example, I know a lot of people may not consider that technically part of marketing, but prove us wrong. Why is that important, and how can we run a beta test ourselves or hire someone?
It's absolutely part of marketing, especially for multiplayer games. Beta testing early on, giving specific access to only certain individuals of the game and having them want to go out and brag to everybody else that they have access to the game, wanting people to get into the game. You do it in a limited basis early on to make it special, and then you start to slowly bring other people in so they're talking about your game. The best thing you can do is what you said. Having other people champion or sell your game for you is free. You just have to get that community started early. But it's not easy. Building community is a super hard thing to do, and it does have to start, especially, again, multiplayer, has to start really early on in the game. Most developers think about, we've had people come to us and say, hey, can you build community for my multiplayer game a month before the launch? That is impossible. It's not going to happen. You need to be thinking about those things 3 to 4 months before. Zenith was probably the biggest example of how you do it right. Ghost of Tabor was another one that we worked on that we built community way early on, but Zenith did it probably almost better than anybody.
Yeah, and building a giant Discord isn't always what every game needs, but some type of community, you need to kind of identify where other games doing well in what channel is that, whether it's focusing more on Twitter. If you don't have a lot of resources and it's just you, then choose one main one, but also don't let the presence die on the others. Like, just if you have to repost some of the same content on other ones, each one does have a particular way of like telling your story that is way more effective. So if you do have time, build that up. Discord, though, you talked about creating that FOMO with giving certain people early access. Something we did a lot with Zenith. We created a referral program that unlocked an item in the game if they referred a certain amount of people, and just kind of a welcome gift, bringing people in the door. There's a couple things we kind of gave out, but it really kind of, well, there's so many other things we did too, but it really helped encourage just kind of an exploding interest in the game, then creating that FOMO where we partnered with certain streamers to show the game off and give Twitch drops, and just all before the game launched, building up this hype and FOMO for like, I want to get into access, I want to see this world. Doing that while trickling and kind of showing little teases in the community, I think is really important. But yeah, find out where your game might do best, pick a community, and then hopefully you have time to do multiple. But.
So sort of going into community as well are content creators or influencers. You love to hate them, hate to love them. A lot of us are in this room. But should content creators be part of a game's marketing strategy? And if so, how do you find one, or how do you find people that are going to be the right fit for your game?
So 200%. The content creators are absolutely mission critical to launching a game successfully. People go to YouTube and TikTok and all of these platforms to find out what's out, what's hot, what people are playing. They trust a lot of influencers to, they're assuming that these people aren't out there playing garbage, right? So they're there to see what the good games are and take a look at the game and see what it looks like as it's being played and what the opinions are of their trusted content creators. So it is so critical to have a proper influencer budget to like get some of that rolling. I mean, a lot of people will cover the game for free, but if you want to guarantee that there's content out on launch day, sometimes you have to, just spend a little bit to get people to play it and put out videos at the correct times. And it is just, I just can't stress enough how important it is. So.
The best thing that could happen is you have a game and you have a couple of paid pieces of content, but those do really well, and all of a sudden everyone wants to make videos on it because they know that they're all going to get views on it. I think the most recent one I've seen is I Am Cat. I'm sure you guys have all seen it. Everyone's making videos about it, and trust me, not every single person is paid to do. Actually, most of them probably aren't, but it's really picking the right people to make sure that the content that they're putting out there resonates with others, and it's something that all the other creators be like, oh, wow, that looks fun. I also want to do this.
Yeah, a lot of the creators watch other creators. So if you kind of hit the toppling point where, maybe it's a paid one at the beginning, but then others start picking it up and seeing how much fun they had with it.
Yeah, and by the way, I understand that not everybody has a budget to pay creators. So if you don't, and you really want to get creators in there, generic messages don't usually work. Maybe do try to help them get into there. Hey, do you want to set aside a time to have a call? Maybe I can walk you through the game. Maybe if it's multiplayer, you go in there with them, or if it's a single player, be like, hey, I can be on a call with you while you're playing, and explain any issues that you run into, so that you can make sure that they have a good experience.
If you start your email with, hey, creator, I love your content, you're not going to get anybody to answer your emails. So my recommendation would be to find a VR-focused marketing company to reach out for you, even for free organic content, because that's really the only way you're really going to make sure that you get as much coverage as you can, whether it's paid or free. But again, it's the organic content can absolutely spur your game on. It's one of the biggest things that you can do to get people interested in your game. I think if you don't have it, media influencers, you're really kind of losing almost immediately.
And that's something I think when you're designing your game, thinking about a couple spots that could really be a lot of fun for a creator to participate in and to do, Beat Saber, there was a lot of intention in avatars, and then with Live, that really kind of sold the game, but integrating stuff like Live and putting that in there really helps content creators show the game more fun. And so like the cat game, there's this kind of, it's a chance for them to be silly. And like think about Half-Life Alyx with just putting in the drawing thing, but because of that decision to put it in, so many videos were created. And so sometimes you can kind of create a little pocket of your, if it's a single player narrative, but just something that you think this will be a little sandbox that will kind of give content creators something to show in short form and be really funny and get some laughs.
Yeah. So I know you all have a lot to do. It's so hard to develop a game and make sure that it launches on time, on budget, all these things. But if you can put in little pieces of things that will allow your game to market itself, they don't always have to take a lot of effort. Like you said, drawing features sometimes, if it makes sense for your game, could be the difference of if you get content posted about you organically or not.
Yeah.
And when reaching out to content creators, it's, it sounds obvious, right? But try not to always go just by numbers. Like the content has to match what that content creator normally plays. You don't want like, a War Machine, game being posted to someone that markets towards little kids, right? So you just got to be kind of smart on who you have cover your game to really convert with sales. And try to create trackable links sometimes too, right?
Oh, yeah.
And kind of see like how is it working when you're targeting certain creators to cover your game? Who's actually converting to sales? Is that the right person? So the next time you also know the right people for your game too. Just spend a little time and research what kind of games people play.
And I was
Yeah.
going to say to that too, the only thing with that is don't always be the be-all end-all to be conversion. Because word of mouth, getting people saying your name of your game can be extremely important. So the conversion is important, but it's not always the be all end all. You have to have people. Usually, it's like a sales funnel. You have to have people see or hear your name of your game 5 or 6 times before they even decide to buy it, unless it's a AAA game. So you need to get your name out there. So even though somebody may not help you push towards conversion of sales, but them getting just the name of the game out there can absolutely help.
Yeah, brand awareness critical in any business.
Yep.
Speaking of that, Reddit's such a hard beast. It can be cruel, and you'll want to give up the internet forever. But it is, especially in VR, it's such a powerful place to get the word out. And I see so many times devs just put a little clip, nothing special about it. It's just a little clip, and you'll see like 0 upvotes. And we do work a bit with strategizing what works well on Reddit, and a big part of that is, again, back to that, what's unique about your game? What is this special? What's something we haven't seen before? Like with Zenith, did something that showed the physics in a MMO, and so you could actually flip your sword up, catch it, and throw it, and like bounce it off your shield, and so something like that in an MMO just hadn't existed. So it was just kind of like, have you ever seen this in an MMO before? And even like that went kind of viral on even other non-VR related subreddits, but it's just kind of finding that one kind of special thing that just makes people is crucial. And yeah,
I think the gliding one too, right?
Yeah, there's a bunch, but yeah, just look at my Reddit account and like scroll through all the different posts and then just copy what I did. Yeah.
So, assuming that we've done absolutely everything that we've said, we've done it well. I know sounds pretty easy. We are very close to launch, we think. Maybe, but there might be one other consideration to make, and that is a press release. But what exactly is a press release? Why do we need one? Do we need one? And what should go in one?
That's a great question. Press release is probably the most overlooked thing. When you're setting up a press release for your own game, most development teams have a tendency to puke every bit of information about the game into a press release, and it becomes a mind-numbingly huge document that most media or creators will not read through. You have to put a lot of thought and effort, and you have to be a really good goddamn writer to put together a good press release. So if you think any person can just pop a press release up, or I'm going to use AI and write it that way. You need to think again. Press release is extremely important. If you want media to cover your game, if you want creators to read something and be compelled to cover your game in this area, like Jasmine said, where there's so many games now. I mean, how many multiple games are launching every week? Do you know how many press releases that media is getting? Do you know how many press releases that the creators are getting? You have to be different, and you have to be pretty succinct in what you do.
Press releases should contain all of the info that you need to relay about your game. They need to have all of the critical information that a news outlet is going to use to write a proper article on your game. Don't write an article for them. Give them the information that they need to be able to cover the game properly. As a multiplayer, when's the release day, what makes the game special. You got to cover all of that stuff. Give them compelling graphics. But an important thing here is too that you have to give them access to the game. So you have to find a way to distribute a key along with that press release and keep track of it, and not just have them forward it to 1 million people and now everyone has access to your game, right? Friction is a big thing in VR, and it goes with press releases and getting people to write about your game too. If they have to come back to you and try to get access to your game, and you have to go back and forth with them, they're just going to give up, and they're going to move on to the next thing because there's stuff coming out all the time. So make sure when you send out a press release, there's a very clear and easy way for them to get access to the game and go in and try it.
And we built a system that lets you click, and we can see who actually redeemed and that gives us a chance to follow up with them and kind of, hey, just making sure you got this, and then sometimes they're like, oh, you got lost in my inbox, and so kind of following up, not being annoying, but following up and knowing whether they actually got it or not, and just offering to even jump in and guide them through something if they wanted a personal tour. That's important, and really just, again, in that press release, telling your story, making sure most editors, again, they get so many press releases. If something jumps off in their email that really is this is going to get a lot of clicks for my blog, which at the end of the day is their kind of main thing that they're trying to make sure will tell a good story and get clicks. That's how it often survives. But so getting it to make it easy so somebody can be like, oh, that's a good story, and then still letting them create it without writing it for them.
Yeah, the underlying theme across everything we're talking about is knowing exactly what message you're trying to get across to your audience and what makes your game special. That's literally every single thing that you do. You have to know exactly what makes your game special, which means knowing what other games are out there and how yours stands against it. And maybe you built this really good game and you get to the end and you're like, oh crap, I don't really know what makes it super special. It could be just a small feature that you add in there towards the end, which I think the gliding feature in Zenith wasn't originally going to be there, and that got added a little bit later towards launch, and then everyone was like, whoa, you can fly around in here. So just understanding exactly what your message is and being very clear about that, that's usually what we start with is, what is your message? What makes your game special? And then have that be like your vision board, and everything you do always has to tie back to what makes your game special.
I would also mention press kit. It's the easiest thing to overlook is a good press kit. And most of the times, again, development studios just start to take a dump of all their documents and all of their graphics that they have, and they jam it into a press kit. You need to keep your press kit clean, make it easy for the media or the creator who's using it. Make sure they have good B-roll, make sure they have good graphics so they can add your graphics to the game, and then information about the game, but keep it clean. That's the easiest thing to overlook. That most people just don't think about.
Yeah, again, friction, right? If people have to go out and find graphics themselves to create a thumbnail for a video or art for an article, you're probably not going to get covered. So make sure you have real good high quality images in there. Account for your logo being on a black background or a white background. All of those little things make sure that's available to the people that are going to be covering your game.
So, cool. We've launched our game. Hopefully we're making a lot of money. Hopefully we have a very active user base. But unfortunately, marketing doesn't end there. Marketing never sleeps. It's going to be there throughout pre-launch, post-launch. But what can we do when it comes to post-launch support to ensure that our game remains stable, remains enticing, and will have a long life after launch?
Yeah, one of the things we recommend is having a timeline and understanding when you're releasing updates or anything or new content or whatever it may be. just releasing something regularly, even if it's very small, just so that the people know that you're still there, you still care, and you're still working on this game, and this game didn't just launch and then all of a sudden disappear.
Yeah, roadmap. Roadmap's like one of the most important things you can do post-launch. Just exactly what Jasmine said. If people know that you have things coming, even if they know that you're just thinking about putting those things, it doesn't even have to be a guarantee that you're going to do it, but if you're like, I would like to do this, if we can do this, and you keep them updated and knowledge about the game, people will want to support you. And if you have knowledge about something that's that's not perfect in your game, we all know that we get content locked at some point, right? I mean, at some point you have to stop working on your game, turn it over to the platform for review. You're content locked at that point, and maybe you find a bug later, or maybe you find something that wasn't perfect. Put that in a roadmap right away. Let people know. You stop some of those negative reviews up front. If people know that there's an issue and they know that you're going to work on it, and they know that you're going to have a patch coming as soon as the game launches, they're more apt to not negatively review at that point. So don't be afraid of an issue in your game. Face it head on, fix it early, and those are things that you do for post-launch. And then don't abandon it. You just got to your finish line. I know you want to take a break. I know you want to take a rest. Everybody wants a vacation. Marketing cannot. It'll be like a faucet. If you turn off all marketing after your launch, your game will just die. So you need to keep some momentum going along the way. That was one of the things we learned early on. Like, we were kind of ending where we were working, like right at the launch, and we just found that if we keep going at least another month and a half, your tail of the sales tail of your game is that much longer.
You can involve your community and the people that play your game with your roadmap. A good thing you could do is allow people to kind of upvote new features that are coming up, and then listen to the people. The people feel like they're being heard. You are bringing the most wanted things to your game after the game. People know that you're always there looking at stuff, and you're making things happen, and the game is living on and getting better. So try involving your community too if you can.
And that vision casting, use that a lot because it's how you tell the narrative, tell the story of your game, and what makes it unique. But vision casting to your audience is so important for them to see kind of where you're going. And again, that changes reviews often. If they know, like, okay, here's where he's going, I see it, I want to get behind that developer. It changes from a 3-star to a 5-star. And reviews are so important. Try to get, this goes back to the store page, but like one goal is to get at least 100 reviews in as quickly as you can, even if it means giving more away than you might in certain categories. One thing we do with Impact Labs is make sure everyone who test the game does give fair feedback, but that gives at least a couple hundred reviews automatically out of the gate. But connecting with people to make sure you're hitting that number, because until we've got some data that shows just how that hurts the game's sales when people see. And if it's a 5-star game but only has 2 reviews, then nobody believes that. And so there's kind of a threshold of like trying to get over that hump where it's not negatively affecting.
And this reminds me of something in Monkey Do. They had this little bulletin board in there that tells you remember to join our Discord, leave a review, and just it's something you don't think about, but just having something in the game and make sure it feels not like a pop-up that goes in your face and you get annoyed all these ads, but something that's nice to integrate it. And they're like, oh, I can walk up to this bulletin board and try to take a look, what's going on? Oh, there's a new, this person's at the top for the week, or this is the top member of Discord for the month, or this is the whatever it is. And all of these can all tie back to your Discord too, having different events and things that people can work towards, and especially when people compete against each other. That's a really big driving point for people getting back in there and trying to bring everybody else they know into the game.
You mentioned reviews. That is such an important thing, right? You got to get having a lot of reviews is really important, but also knowing how to deal with those reviews. In no world will you ever have 100% positive reviews, so you have to be able to take those critical reviews and then be nice about it when you reply. And also know how to take that stuff in and kind of improve your game off of those negative reviews, and also taking the positive reviews. And reviews are just so important, absolutely critical.
And a lot of times reviews aren't updated, and so it might have been a bug that was fixed later, and you fix their issue, and then like, how do I get them? For a couple games, I've changed like over 100 reviews that shifted it from like a mid-game to an excellent game just by following through. You can DM anyone on the Meta platform as long as the default, I think, is open, and so it's pretty easy to get in touch and just like, hey, just the developer, we fixed this issue. Just is there anything else? Like, how are you enjoying the game? Kind of creating that relationship. Just have somebody go and do that and create relationships. If it's been updated, don't try to be defensive and you just don't understand our game. Like, it's brilliant. But just, yeah, knowing, take that step. It feels a little bit like door-to-door salesman maybe, but if you come from a humble, like, thanks so much for that feedback. That was crucial. We actually fixed that. It really helped it. I'm glad you brought that out. And that can get a lifetime like fan. We've seen that before.
Yeah, and it might get them to change their review. They're like, oh, well, some people always say things like, this would be 5 stars if this one thing was changed, but then no one ever goes back to them and tells them, hey, this was changed. So just going that extra effort and saying, hey, I changed this, I really was paying attention, and then they might change their reviews. Now all of a sudden, all these like lower reviews you have been updated, and your game's doing great.
And celebrate your 5-star reviews or 4-star reviews. Like, but one of the things that we did early on for a game that we worked on called Rogue Ascent was we were like, we have so many great reviews out there from people and great little snippets of what they said about the game. Take those things, put big 5 gold stars on it, post it in your social media, thanking that person for that review. It'll get other people to want to do it, because if you do it more often, they're like, oh, maybe my review will get spotlighted too. So celebrate those reviews, put them on your social media. People love to see them. And usually there's a lot of really good things said about games.
And that's another real quick way, the post-launch strategy, sometimes following up with like an accolades trailer if that's applicable.
Yeah.
And again, like telling your story, what makes your game unique, but sometimes it has a different slight of what does your audience love about your game, what makes it feel unique. And that's a chance to do kind of a trailer of pointing, this is why people love it, and if they actually like saw it too, I think they would get it too. And so kind of let that be another follow-up trailer sometime post-launch.
Such awesome advice. I was going to say, we probably want to save a little bit of time for Q&A, so we'll probably start that now. That's enough of our talking head portion. I suppose you could say that. Again, there's so much more.
We could go 2 more hours on this.
I know.
We just got to launch.
But real quick before, I just want to give a quick shout out. If you do want to add the Live SDK to add creator options to your game, or if you just don't want to do a trailer yourself because it can be scary and intimidating, you can always reach out to us at live.tv or send an email, hi@live.tv. Or if any of this other marketing stuff, marketing, PR, social media, all that scared you, outsource it, or beta testing. Impact Reality, Impact Labs, they can do all that for you. So reach out to them at impactrealityxr.com or hello@impactreality.com. And I think we have mics, so hopefully, yeah, we've got a question up here first.
Hi, thanks for the panel. There are games that come out every week. What can you do to find the newsworthy aspect of your game other than put all caps, new game out? Like
Don't put all caps.
in the subject line of an email. Like what actually will attract people's attention, or how can you find out what's newsworthy about a game? That's one. And two is, what about events? Like a launch party or anything like that? Are those effective? Or inviting influencers to come to them and all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, launch party events, if you have it in your budget, extremely important. We did a launch event for Ghost of Tabor when they launched onto App Lab. And it was extremely well done. We brought in a lot of creators who were able to cover the game in some way. It was a little thank you from the Ghost of Tabor team. They put on a great event and like really got people involved with it. And all those creators now are creators that will be forever, like loving Ghost of Tabor, and they create content about them constantly. So, that team was able, they had a budget to do a launch party. So if you can do it, if you have the capabilities to do it, absolutely do it. If you can't do it live, do a virtual one. That would be cool too. Just getting some of those people that supported you early on involved to celebrate the launch would be a great idea.
But does this go back to making sure you pick the right people and understand who their audience is, and make sure that it aligns with your audience so that it's a good ROI?
Yeah.
You want to take the subject?
Yeah. So the question was about how do you, again, like back to what makes it stand out among everything else that's coming out, and the telling your story and showing what's unique about it goes. it sounds so simple, but there's millions of applications of it. And so a big thing, again, is like finding a couple features that kind of make it unique and special, and then working even with content creators. If all your playtesting is a great chance to even connect with content creators. A lot of them are in these like early beta programs to try out games that are coming out. So getting involved with them, seeing their footage, and like, oh, okay, they really had a good time with that, and then kind of leverage that in your launch, and maybe even have some quotes from them, people that they trust, saying good things about your game.
Don't be afraid to focus on things other than the game. Most of the developers have a good story. You have a good background. You came from somewhere. Focus on some of those things. We were just talking to somebody who has a book series that's going to be revolve around the game that they're launching. Having a book series or something like that, it's a cool thing to put in a press release, especially to differentiate yourself from somebody else. So find those small things that maybe make sense out of your past or the game's past or the studio's past. That just makes sense to specialize a little bit.
Yeah.
Listen to your testers too, right? At Impact Reality, we have 1,200 testers that we can run games through, and they will absolutely tell you what the highlights are, and really, you can see their excitement for different parts of the game, and you can get a better feel for some of the things you can focus on with that.
Okay. I think we hopefully have time for one more question. I want to make sure we get you in.
I have two questions. One, for development of games, have you coached your gamers about different MDMs and which ones might work best? Because I'm also exploring that myself.
Yeah.
And then the second question, you might have dabbled into this already, but I want to hear more about the Impact Lab that I saw on the website.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to take Impact Labs first?
Well, do you want to answer the first part of the question?
MDMs?
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You start.
Well, let's do Impact Labs. That's the easiest. So Impact Labs is just a testing department that we have internally for Impact Reality. And it was us early on of bringing together a community of passionate VR testers or gamers that wanted to be involved in game development. And that's the biggest thing. These testers are volunteers that just want to be involved. They like to feel that they're part of something bigger. And many times with this, it gets them involved with the overall part of the game. So it's not just the testing. They stay with that game forever because they feel like they were early on involved in helping some of the decision making. Impact Labs can be testing the game, but it can be something as simple as easy. We've had clients that have come in and just wanted key art tested. They were early on in the game and they just wanted key art tested. They've had titles of their game tested. Title of the game is so important. You have to make sure that it has a title that resonates as to what the game is. So those things are asked to the Impact Lab testers. Again, we talked about pricing. One of the easiest ways to get an idea on pricing is what the consumer itself is willing to pay for what they think your game is and perceive it as. And then testing for bugs and testing for UI, things like that. Any pain points in your game, we'll find those quickly with Impact Labs. Again, it's 1,200 testers from across the board of different areas, and
It's so crucial. First 15 minutes of your game needs to really capture people, and we see so much data. If you're not strategic with the first 15 minutes of your game, then you often lose them, and even if they don't return it, you have less engagement, which then they become your marketing people, right? Like if they love the game, then they're the ones going out talking about it on socials. But capturing and really drawing them in is so important. That's so often like the last thing a developer thinks about. They were just focused on getting like end-game content and stuff that people won't really see, but having a good pathway to sucking you into your game is crucial.
what's nice about Impact Labs too is like if you've gone out there and you've had your own testers or your own community that you've tried to help, give you feedback on your game, most of the time you have a relationship with them, that information becomes biased in some way. They like you or, they had a relationship with you, so they maybe not want to give you, some of the hard feedback that you might need to hear or see. With Impact Labs, they're all pretty much unbiased. They don't know who the developers are directly, and they just, again, they want to help build the game, so they will give you constructive criticism on where to go from there in that point. So
with a very good sample set.
Yeah.
Lots of the demographics of all of them are around the world, different interests, male, female, like a good kind of mix of that gives accurate info.
So, unfortunately, I think we just ran out of time, so sorry we couldn't get to the first part of your
We'll
question.
answer it afterwards.
But yeah.
If you're still here, just grab us as soon as it's over. We can go into absolutely all that. For
Yeah,
sure.
we'll be most of us, I think, will be standing outside in the hall, so if you do have more questions, we're more than happy to answer them out there. But otherwise, thank you guys so much for attending our little talk today, and hope you learned something.